All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here. We're going to start right on time, and we're going to let people that are coming in a little bit late just file in without actually waiting for them. So we're just going to go ahead and get started today. Again, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Clark Manwaring. I'm the CRO here at JKR, and we're excited to conduct your guys' virtual boot camp today. So let me go ahead and get up the window that we'll be sharing. Looks like my screen is sharing just fine here. And we'll go ahead and get started today. To kick things off, I just want to give you guys a look at what we're going to be talking about today. We'll probably take about an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes total to cover all of the material from today. We're going to help you onboard into all of your tech stack if you haven't done so hitherto. We're going to help you learn a little bit more about Windows and what we're selling, the problems that it solves, and then we'll also understand the sales psychology behind approaching somebody at their doorstep and having good mindset as we go out and tackle the day every day. Number 3, we'll reiterate all the minimum expectations of the role. Then number 4, we'll set some goals and plans so that you can see early success here at JKR. So to kick things off, then we're going to help you guys just get an idea of what should have been done up until this point. If you haven't done these things, then no sweat. You're probably watching this before your infield orientation. If it was the day before your infield orientation or after, then you've got some catching up to do. But for right now, you can take a deep breath. We want to help you get organized. So some spring cleaning or a little checklist here. Number 1, you should have received a welcome email. You probably couldn't actually be at this meeting unless you received your welcome email already. So I am just going to take that as you've already done it. You've already received that. Number 2, should have filled out the JOT form, or in some cases, that's just a little link that sends you to a page where you input all of your info. And that page, once completed, should auto-populate with your DocuSign documents. That's your W-9, your rep agreement, your direct deposit, all as one form. If you have not received that, what I want you to do is go into the chat right now and give us a shout. So you can just say, hey, Clark, I haven't received X, Y, or Z. If there are any of these things that you haven't received up until this point, and after the meeting, we can go ahead and tackle that for you. We can help you out. Number 3, you should have started memorizing the coordinator script. So the coordinator script is our door approach. That's how we're approaching a homeowner, educating them about our ad home program. So if you haven't read that, that term is going to sound foreign. For those of you that have started memorizing that, you already understand what the advertising home program does. And we'll talk about that more today. What I want you to do, we're going to have a poll right now. In that poll, I want to just survey how much of that coordinator script you guys have memorized. So you're going to get 4 options. That first option is going to be, I have it completely memorized word for word, which is awesome. That means that you can go onto the little Wedge link. Wedge is an application that we use to pass off that script before being in field. Number 2 is I have a lot of it done, but not quite all of it. Number 3 option is I've started memorizing it, but haven't completed it. And then number 4 is going to be I have not started at all, which for those of you that are on option 4, no chastisement, no problems quite yet, but we do need to have that memorized before your start date. So please put in the effort and initiative to get that done before then. That should give you guys hopefully enough time to have completed that poll at this point by now. So we'll keep moving. Number 4, gotten into Trainual and started watching the video modules on Trainual. On this one, if you can go into the live chat, if you have not received this, letting us know will help us go ahead and send that after this meeting and get you caught up. Number 5 is you started working on your Power 20 list. That Power 20 list is really more for your benefit than anything, as we'll come to learn today. It's not any sort of way of JKR harvesting leads. It is a way for you to get organized on your first sales prospects and first recruiting prospects as you come into your first week in the field. So another poll is going to populate right now. If you can jump into that poll, you're going to go ahead and get 3 options. One of them is I've completed it. Number 2 is I've started it but haven't completed it. And number 3 is I have not completed that at all. I haven't started that at all. So we'll give you a couple minutes here, or a minute or so, to go ahead and complete that now. Okay, awesome. Hopefully that gave everybody enough time to go and fill that out. Thank you for your responses there. And then last but not least, you should have already gotten an invite to these things. If you have not received an invite to Pronto, Spodio, or Ciro, then what I want you to do is I want you to send me, it says send Clark your full name, email, and number. You don't need to do that. Just send me a message that says I have not received one, two, or all three of these things, and we'll help you get caught up. Pronto is what we use for our inner team communication. So we use that as an internal chat to celebrate wins, to announce trainings and things like that, and incentives. Spodio is our knocking app. So that helps you have all of the data that you'll need in order to begin actually interacting with the homeowner. There's a chance that we might change that pretty soon here. So you might get a response from us that says, hey, we've already sent you this. It's actually this app instead that we'll be changing to. And number 3 is Ciro. Ciro is a recording app that helps us gauge if the script is being followed, what questions were effective, what was ineffective when you were with the homeowner, and just helps us give you a better chance at succeeding early on. So all 3 of those should have been sent. If it hasn't, again, just put that in the live chat there and we can help you after the fact. Okay, let's keep on moving. So to kick things off in our training section, I want to give you guys a look at who you'll be learning from. In this training, you'll be learning from me. I'm the 3rd picture that you see there at the bottom, but you'll also more than likely be interacting with Jefferson and Jeff as well, my partners here at JKR. And I want to give you a look at who the leaders are and who you'll be working with over time. So starting things off, Jefferson K. Rogers is the JKR. Here we go. JKR of JKR. Him and his wife, Shandell, founded the company 6 years ago. So 6 years ago, back in May, everything got kicked off. Jefferson at that point already had a pretty good leg up on most people that start up a window company because he had been in construction since he was a kid, already have installed windows. He had done everything from knocking doors to closing down window deals in the home, managing and building teams, project coordination and management, customer service, you name it. If there's something that his business has done, Jefferson has done that, which is a really rare treat when speaking from experience working with executive teams and home services, that is extremely rare to find a partner who has done everything that he asks his employees to do. Jefferson also has a book out called All In. So you can find that on Amazon. You can find that on Audible if you're a big listener like me instead of a big reader with my attention span. All In is the story of how he overcame alcoholism in his, I would say early adulthood, and decided to be a better man, better father, and ultimately built the platform that is JKR. JKR was founded on the principle of being a self-improvement company first and a window company second, which we'll talk about in just a couple minutes here. Jefferson embodies that, everything from having done bodybuilding competitions and keeping his body healthy to keeping mentally alert and continuing his knowledge through books and seminars and coaching. Over multiple six figures invested in coaching programs over the years. Jefferson just embodies what his company stands for. Second off is Jeff Fieldstead. Jeff is a newer addition to the team, as am I. Jeff started in 2023, and I believe October of 2023. And really just incredible sales talent, leader, recruiter, you name it. If there's something that it takes to build revenue, Jeff is all over it and a master of doing that. Prior to being here, Jeff attained an 8-figure exit in the financial services industry, where he actually IPO'd. So he had initial public offerings twice, rang the bell twice on the New York Stock Exchange for Primerica as one of their youngest, I believe the youngest senior national sales director. So essentially a VP of sales at Primerica. Over $2 billion in yearly revenue created from his team, one of the largest teams in organized sales in American history. So very, very fortunate to work with Jeff. Jeff also helps manage our Boise office and a couple other offices as well. Myself, you guys probably already know me at this point, either having interviewed with me or done a wedge interview. That's our one-way video interview. I don't need to go into a ton of depth, but just so that you understand who I am. My name's Clark Manwaring, like man wearing a shirt. I've been in home services selling for 13 years, so over a decade now. Started when I was 16 years old, currently 29 years old, and really it's just been a blessing being there. That's where I made my first 6 figures in a year. At 19, it's where I made my first multiple 6 figures a year at 21, and then beyond. It's just, built from there. So it's been very fortunate to be in the industry that I've been in and supported my family that way. I've done everything from building teams and managing teams to eventually owning companies. So for the past 5 or 6 years now, almost 6 years, I've owned multiple home service companies myself in industries like fiber, roofing, HVAC, and solar, with exits in both roofing and solar. My claim to fame, if there ever is a claim to fame, I feel weird saying that, is that I've built some of the largest door-to-door teams in American history, and in fact built the largest door-to-door sales force in American history that sold for a 9-figure exit back in 2021. So very fortunate to have been with the people that I've been in, the industries that I've been in. I've now been with JKR for about 4 months now, and it's just been incredible, fertile soil for growth, which is the name of what I do every single day. So very, very blessed to be with you guys today. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about JKR as a company. Reputation matters. And having experience, having sold in the home for over a decade now, I can give you 2 reasons why that is very, very true. The first is that when I'm building rapport in a home, rapport isn't just this, esoteric, hard to put a finger on what you're doing type of conversation. There might be a little bit of that, just kind of back and forth chit chat, but it does have kind of a formula. And that formula, as I've followed it or honored it over the years, has been that I want the homeowner to be 10 out of 10 on me, working with me, 10 out of 10 on the product that I'm selling, and then 10 out of 10 on the company that I represent. So if we were to rate each of those things and how in control each of those things are, I would probably rate them the following. Myself and representing myself in the home is 10 out of 10. If there's a homeowner that does not trust me, that is my own damn fault. So what does that mean? Well, that means my effort, my attitude are in my control. Everything outside of me can't really do a ton about, but I can control who I am and how people perceive me, just based off of my self-development and the level of preparation that I bring to that meeting and knowledgeability and ability to serve them. Number 2 is the actual product itself. So if we take the product that we sell, which is a triple pane virgin vinyl replacement window, I only have so many options before I exhaust them. So we work with Allside Windows. That is the manufacturer. And if Allside makes it, we can install it, we can sell it. So they obviously have a line, and I've got some choices. So I've got some control over what I'm selling. I could do double pane over triple pane. I could change the size. I could change the color of the trim. But if I want to go outside of that, I really can't choose anything else to sell. So the control level that I have over the product that I'm selling is really like a 5 or 6. It's kind of somewhere in the middle of the road on that scale from 1 to 10. So there's not a ton of control that I have over that. Talking about the company that I represent, there is no bigger uphill battle than having to sell against the company that you represent. Trust me, from experience, over a decade ago, having to represent companies that are 2-star companies on Google, man, that is a hard objection to overcome, because that is literal evidence from other customers that are saying, red flag, do not work with this company. That's like, bad anecdotal evidence against what you are trying to do, which is serve a homeowner. So when we talk about reputation, it matters, number 1, in that sense, where I can't control it. The company will continue with or without me, and should have already had a platform that is well renowned for being the best at what they do. In the Mountain West right now, we have over 2,000 reviews, 4.9 star weighted average, A+ Better Business Bureau, and Best Home Services Workplace of 22 and 23, and more than likely 24 in Utah, 23 in Colorado, and we anticipate that 2024 across Colorado, Utah, and of course, Idaho as well. So we're a reputational powerhouse. That means that already coming in, you've overcame what a lot of other competitors will not have overcome, which is that we are the highest rated and also most rated, most reviewed window company in the Mountain West as of today. So why else does that matter? I said that there were two reasons. Well, number two is that as a salesperson professionally in the home, I want two things to be true, much like a train on a track, right? Or tracks would want. A train really wants two things if we were to personify it, give it a brain. It wants clear, unobstructed track to go on so that nothing is in its way. And then number two, it wants a ton of coal. It wants fuel, right? So it doesn't have to be coal. That's just widely accepted as fuel for a train. So looking at that same analogy for a salesperson, we want the same things. The track is something I can't totally control. So I want that to just be greased up like butter, no obstructions in the way. That is your reputation. The coal is like your leads. And so being the number one, that reputation attracts or magnetizes leads towards us and allows us to be more competitively priced, allows us to give a better warranty like we'll talk about, and therefore accumulates more demand or more interest in what we do and a more qualified, higher intent buyer as well. So reputation means the world to us, and you now represent, same root word there, our reputation. You are representing the JKR brand both as a hiring manager and as a sales representative in the home. It is your primary responsibility to uphold and live up to that reputation. Let's keep moving, talking about the JKR vision. What is the vision for the company? Well, you can see the cold, hard $ number there, and I promise that that isn't as cold as it seems. $1 billion in yearly revenue is the goal of JKR within the next 5 calendar years. We want to achieve that in 1 year. Now, given our trajectory of doubling or more, so 200% growth or more every year since our inception, that is a very achievable goal. We will exceed that based on our growth trajectory right now. You are a part of that. But $1 billion does not mean the same as it does to, say, an Amazon. Right? Amazon, led by Jeff Bezos, is known for being essentially a stack of human bodies on one another that good old Jeff climbs all the way to the moon. There are not a lot of employees at Amazon that are paid all that well. It's not what it's known for. In fact, it's known for hiring people without even an interview, if that tells you how they value human capital. But looking at what that does at the end of the day, all it does is fill Jeff Bezos' pockets, where he's been in the top 5 richest people for now almost a decade. So $1 billion or multiple billions of dollars in the case of Amazon, or maybe companies like Undoit, is a way of filling the CEO's pockets. But that is not the case at JKR. Case in point, if we look at 2023 data, the year prior to us even talking about this, well, if we look at that data, Jefferson, the CEO and founder, and his wife were not the highest paid people in the company by a long shot. There's a whole trail over a dozen people that earned more than Jefferson did in that calendar year. And if you look at every year since its inception, that has been the case. Jefferson has never been the highest earner at his own company. And that is not because of lack of revenue. If we talk about 2023, that bake data, I mean, that's almost a half of $100 million in revenue. More than enough to go around for the CEO to be earning more than his employees, but that is not the case. So I'm a big believer, and hopefully you guys are too. Money is just an amplifier. If I'm a bad person, money makes me worse. And if I'm a good person, then money makes me better. I have more ways to serve other people with that money. I can use it selflessly. And really, money will not change the model of JKR. The $1 billion mark, or essentially goal, is not a way of putting money back into its founder or executive team's pockets. Rather, it represents an umbrella. That umbrella is one large goal that can house a lot of little goals in between it. JKR is a vehicle at the end of the day, and everybody has a different destination that signs on and works with us, right? So for some people, like my brother, working with JKR was a way to put himself through medical school without any debt. So he could work for a couple of months, make $100,000, and then pay his way through all of his schooling debts, his books, where he lives, the food that he eats, and be ready for that next year to do it all over again. So it helps him get through medical school debt-free and start actually net profiting as a doctor in the future. For other people, that could mean that they want to build up a real estate empire. Some people will refer to that as knocking doors to own doors. What that means is that they're using their active income, which is aggressive at JKR. Like we talked about in the interview phase, our average rep averaged out at $281,000 in yearly earnings last year. Fairly substantial compared to the average American. That gives them extra capital to be able to use towards owning other businesses and being maybe an investor. For a lot of people, that could be buying up houses and duplexes and apartment buildings so that they can build up passive income that eventually retires them from having to work actively. For others, that could just be that they want their time freedom back. For others, that could be taking their kids to Disneyland a couple times in a year. Everybody's destination is different. What I'd like to do, if you feel so comfortable sharing, this won't be with the group, but just personally with us, so we have an idea of who we're working with. Go ahead and use that live chat now as we continue to go ahead and write in your destination. Where do you imagine yourself by using or leveraging JKR as your vehicle for earnings, and what you'd like to do with those earnings? Again, everybody's destination is different, but JKR is that wide umbrella vehicle that houses all these goals in between. So if we had a smaller goal or smaller minded thinking, we would not be able to provide the revenue creating opportunity for all these people to own houses, own a whole bunch of real estate, be able to do the things with their life and time freedom that they want, early retirement. It wouldn't be able to fit those goals. So 1 billion is strategic because it helps us propel our people forward first. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what we're doing with the homeowner. What is actually occurring when we're trying to serve them? Well, if we look at the mechanics of a sale, you generally have two levers that you're playing with to create emotion. Emotion is what helps people buy. Logic is what helps people solidify a buying purchase. So, for example, I might say, well, my family is growing. I know that having a reliable, larger vehicle is going to be an investment. So I might say, let's buy an 8-seater car because I want to grow my family. Maybe not to 8 people, but you get the idea. So the investment in buying a larger car for me, which is going to take a little bit more money out of pocket, is something that I kind of need to get emotionally bought into. There needs to be some sort of excitement about having my family on road trips and what that emotion causes for me in order for me to kind of forget about the dollars and cents and write my name on the dotted line. The next day, though, being able to say to myself, this will actually fit my family. It's going to be a reliable vehicle and save me on maintenance bills in the future. That's what solidifies my decision to have purchased yesterday when I get buyer's remorse. So if we're trying to create emotion, the two levers that we've got to use are the problem and the solution. We're going to talk about the problem for a second. I feel fortunate to have been around problems. I wouldn't say large problems compared to most people, but problems early on in my life. So I have a very good understanding of how to help communicate them. When I was in high school, my youngest sister got cancer. We found out that she had a type of nerve cancer called neuroblastoma. And so living in Salt Lake as a high schooler, I was in and out of a hospital called Primary Children's all the time. Top-notch hospital, and we got to rub shoulders with a ton of doctors, hence 2 of my siblings becoming doctors, a ton of patients and families with cancer kids. Very, very blessed time in our lives, if I'm honest with you. One of the phenomenons that I observed while rubbing shoulders with doctors and asking about what they did for work was that they said, you'd be very surprised at the number of people that come into my office, receive their diagnosis for cancer, and this was usually adults, of course, and then walk out of the office as if it never happened, almost shielding their brain, putting on a visor over it, and then walking away blissfully ignorant to the fact that they have cancer. And then usually, as these doctors described, dying in agony a year to a year and a half, or maybe even sooner later. Worse than what they would have felt if they had gone through chemotherapy, radiation, or surgery. So where am I going with this? Well, we've got a really interesting phenomenon here that the lack of awareness or acceptance of a problem made it so that the doctor could not sell life-giving care. You might not think of what a doctor does as selling, but believe it or not, doctors are in the compliance profession. They do not earn money until they are selling people on their surgery or medication or whatever they're helping somebody get. They are in the sales profession just like you and I, right? And so they cannot sell something if the person that they're selling to doesn't accept that there is a problem in the first place. So why is it so important that the person is on the same page? Well, the literal definition of closing is taking two things and bridging the gap, bringing them in perfect harmony with one another, like a door frame and a door. If the door frame is my prospect's belief of their problem and I'm the door, I have a different understanding of their problem. If the door and the frame are off, it will not be able to shut. We won't find agreement and we will not be able to close that deal. Closing is not as difficult as most people might think. If you're new to the selling profession, then this will probably surprise you that we don't just educate people for an hour in their home and then say, all right, Mr. Homeowner, you ready to buy? We don't do that. That's not how closing works. Usually it's what's called a scaffold. It's a bunch of really little closes that we're doing along the way. Do you agree that there's a problem? Do we agree that these are the symptoms that you're having? Do we agree that you have tried solutions before to solve that problem? Do we agree that those have failed? Do we agree that you are open-minded to a solution? Do you agree that this solution that I'm providing would solve your problems? Would this give you all of the desired benefits that you're looking to benefit from? Does this price match or is under the amount of value that you're receiving from working with me? And then at that point, I don't have to ask if they're going to purchase or not. I can just say, cool, what's your social security number and birthday? And let's see if you qualify for financing. That's it. It doesn't have to be this grandiose event, but that's because I created 100 little closes over time. It's death by 1,000 cuts. So the problem is one of the first levers that I need to create agreement over. Now that we've beaten that horse to death, let's go ahead and look at all of the symptoms and problems of a builder grade window. I want to direct your attention to the right-hand side of the screen where it says one of these windows may outlive the other by 3 times. Can you tell which one? It's funny, if you look at those two windows, they are purposefully identical. They look absolutely the same as one another. And funny enough, doctors would face that same problem. I wouldn't know, let's say that somebody had a breathing issue in their nose. That's something that is happening behind the scenes. A doctor, even a trained one, so we're not even talking about me, looking at somebody on the street would not usually be able to say, that person has a breathing problem. I bet you they have rough sleep at night. They would have to go and examine inside of the nose. And with windows, oftentimes it's the same thing. If you're far enough away from a window and you're not examining it up close, you generally find that every window pretty much looks the same. And that actually is what perpetuates the problem that our homeowners are facing. So let's talk about it. The problem that they're facing is what's called a builder grade window. So the builder in builder grade windows refers to a literal home builder that is going and constructing neighborhoods in mass, which in the markets that we work in, you guys can probably already identify, oh, yep, lots of people are moving to Boise. Lots of people are moving to St. George. People are moving to Salt Lake. People are moving to, put the place that you work, Mesa, in the blank. And so to keep up with that demand, well, the builder has a choice to make. They get to choose the materials and the amount of materials that they're going to use on a given project. They are given a lump sum of money by the financier, that's essentially the bank or mortgage company that the homeowner is using to buy that home. They get a sum of money. So The home might be 800,000. The builder gets 500,000 of that and then says, well, if I spend 500,000 of this money that I received, how much in salary do I earn in a given year or on this project? Zero. So how do builders make their money? By saving money, or that's a really nice way of saying cutting corners. Now, that doesn't mean cutting corners to create homes that are unstable or will hurt somebody. That just means that aesthetically, they might not be the best, or the building material itself is not going to be the longest lasting. But they're strategic about what building materials they will and will not splurge on. So let's talk about it from the perspective of my wife. Me and my wife have now purchased over a dozen homes over our marriage. We do real estate investing. And when we've looked at homes that we personally own, my wife is usually the boss. For those of you that are married men, you might share in my experience there. And so what does my wife, Haley, care about when we're looking at a home? Well, she cares about granite countertops. She cares about nice appliances. She cares about a walk-in closet, an open concept living room, and some backyard space. So the builder is not dumb. The builder says, well, we're going to splurge on maybe appliances or give them that nice thick black granite countertop that they like. But they're eventually going to say, well, there has to be some things that we can't spend this amount on. We can't splurge on everything. So what does Haley look through? Well, quite literally, she's looking through the windows. Despite being married to me, my wife doesn't care all that much. A window's kind of a window to her, right? Most people are the same. They share in that same problem. And so they would not know if it was a subpar building material or not. And so let's look at the problem that presents. A builder grade window is usually not custom, number one. So a hole has been cut into the home, an opening, and the window that was purchased for that is just the closest thing that fits into that opening from a Home Depot or a Lowe's. So that means that there is a seal that needs to be created around that window. And usually the seal is just going to be just generally kind of pre-done. It's not going to take any intimate amount of time or attention to create when a builder is building in mass. So already you've got a problem. You've got air that's seeping through. Pressure finds the path of least resistance. And so air pressure is going to come out that window. We'll talk about what problems that causes in a second. Number two are the actual panes itself. That's either going to be single pane, so very, very brittle window, easy to break, or double pane, also fairly easy to break. And that double pane is 2 panes of glass with maybe gas in between, maybe no gas in between. So what does that mean? Well, that means that when the sun hits it, that it's not going to create radiant barrier. Sun hits it, gets trapped in the glass, and bounces right back, and no heat radiation comes into the home. Nope, don't bet your life on it. That heat is going to come right into the home. So what problems or symptoms does that problem create? Well, we can see 5 examples here. We'll go through them now. The first is low comfort factor. When it's hot inside, right? Or when it's hot outside, it's hot inside. When it's cold outside, it's cold inside because it has no barrier to the element outside, no barrier to inclement weather. Number 2 is that what is that homeowner going to do to combat their discomfort? Well, take a look right now at your nearest window of your home. If you have a non-custom home, there's a very, very good chance that right next to the window, right above it, you're going to see what's called a supply vent. A supply vent is an HVAC supply. So it's kind of like the arteries. It's bringing blood into the home. So in this case, it's bringing either cool air or warm air, depending on what you want in your home. Why does the builder strategically put that next to your window? Well, they're masking the discomfort that a builder grade window creates that they know it's creating. Again, they're not stupid. So what does that do when you're running your HVAC all the time? Well, if we look at even just the Mountain West, that's where I live, that HVAC usage, so heating and cooling, is going to account for more than 55% of an average power bill in a given month. So that means that if my windows are 40% less efficient than a builder grade window, then I could be paying 40% more on every single one of those dollars that makes up 55% of my power bill. Very, very good chance then that 20 to 25% of all of my power bill every month is needless spend. It is me hemorrhaging dollars and cents out of my wallet. Like I poked a hole in there and all the dollars and cents fall out. So on top of low comfort, I'm hemorrhaging power bills And if I stay in my home for 7 years and I'm hemorrhaging $500, which is fairly average, if not higher, in yearly excess power bill spend, that's almost $4,000 of excess spend that I did not need during the average 7-year lifespan of a homeowner in the Mountain West living in their home. Massive waste. Number 3 is privacy or lack thereof. So privacy can refer to sounds outside. If the dogs are barking next door, the neighborhood kids are playing baseball, or there's, fireworks or something like that. My daughter inside, or, my newborn is going to probably wake up. That's going to be a rough night's sleep for us. So it has no barrier to sound. And then even larger than that, we become a target for home invasion. So lack of privacy means that my windows aren't tinted, they're not reflective, and home invaders can look inside and see all of the valuables that I carry inside of my home very, very easily. Okay. So low privacy, low security. So because of that security risk, that can mean 2 things: that unintentional security risks, like my daughter throwing a golf ball at a window, will crack or break a window. And she's only 2 years old. Now, that could also mean that intentional break-ins are a little easier as well. A break-in through the window would not be terribly hard if you've got a rod or a bat in a builder-grade window. That's a recipe for disaster right there. Number 5 is one of the largest money-eating parts or symptoms of a builder-grade window, and that's the equity that's eaten up when you try to resell your home. When you resell a home, if you're not familiar with selling or buying homes, you have what's called an appraiser. An appraiser is somebody who the bank sends into the transaction to verify that the home is worth what's being paid on the table. So for example, my home is currently worth $1.9 million. If one of you wanted to buy my home and put in a bid at $2.2 million, I'd be very, very happy about that. And maybe you think that my home is worth that. But when an appraiser comes into my home, they're going to take a look at everything that is on the interior and exterior, including my windows. And they're going to say, all right, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the man-wearing home is not worth $2.2 million. So you have 2 options. You can drop this transaction because the bank will not lend for something that's not worth $2.2 million, or you can pay the difference in cash. So pony up $300,000 in cash right now. Extra. Well, most homeowners don't want to do that. So appraisers prevent bad purchases for the bank, but they also are an assessment of real value. I might think that my pool is really worth something. Well, is it? It's maybe subjective. Maybe I live in a place where there is appraisable equity. Solar panels are something that I've sold in the past where you can say there's equity in it, but if we look at all the studies, it's subjective to the person buying. There is not immediate value to every homeowner because it's a luxury, not a commodity. Windows, on the other hand, are a commodity. You need windows on your home. So a builder grade window eats equity. That's called a liability, whereas a replacement window, like the ones that we sell, is what's called an asset. Assets accumulate equity. They actually hold equity like a piggy bank. Your home at the end of the day, despite being the place that you live and breathe and enjoy time with family, is also a large piggy bank. So in the state of Utah, where I live, if we look at appraisable equity for a window, 80 cents of every dollar that you spend on a replacement window is going to be held as equity that you will actually get appraised value for and get money in your bank account when you transact. So the inverse of that is that you can lose 80 cents on the dollar in equity on a builder grade window, meaning that for a home that has $20,000 worth of windows, that could be $16,000 or up to $16,000 of loss. So using the 2 examples that we used just barely, that could be $16,000 of equity loss and $4,000 of power bill loss over the 7 years that an average homeowner will live in their home. $20,000 of loss just by doing nothing. For those of you that have taken economics, you are probably familiar with the term opportunity cost. For those of you that are not, we'll break it down with a fun example. So in college, I was maybe a little bit more of a player than I should have been, and I was dating a lot of girls all at once. Not the best time in my life looking back. So opportunity cost for me as a college kid would have been, there's a blonde and a brunette, and the cost of dating a blonde is the brunette. The cost of dating the brunette is the blonde. It's whatever option I did not choose. So the avoided cost that is avoided when someone repurchases windows is $20,000 here. The actual cost of our windows averages out at 15, which means that we will be lower. I will never charge somebody more than what they are already losing. Isn't that crazy? That all we're doing is saying, look, if you continue down this path and I do not serve you, or maybe even another window company serves you, you will never see as much savings, equity, and earnings back in your pocket as you would working with JKR and Clark Manwaring. That is sales. That is service. So what does this mean to us? Well, this means a few things. Number one, it means that if we can get agreement on that, somebody's halfway to a buying decision. Woo! Right? Number two is that it means that we have leads everywhere. In the Mountain West, more than 98% of homes currently in existence on the market or off market currently have a builder grade window that has not been replaced. That means that 98 out of every 100 people that you bump into at a Walmart or anywhere that you're going, the mall, need what you can provide them. So you have leads in your phone, with your family, your friends, with your neighbors, or any neighborhood that you happen to come into. That is a blessing. That is something that most sales professions cannot say. They do not have leads just walking around everywhere. That is not true of most companies. So we're in a very fortunate situation where we have low competitors, the best offer, which we'll talk about in a second here, and really, really high ability to take over market share. The market is this wide open 98% of a pie that hasn't been eaten, and you just got a spoon. Now you can dig in. So let's teach you how to do that. Let's teach you how to sell and serve to a homeowner by talking about the solution. So we talked about there being levers to creating emotion. We've already gotten this person really kind of not down in the dumps, but they understand, wow, I am facing a massive problem by taking no action. So the solution now helps them know that, hey, that this is not a hopeless cause. No matter what you've tried, we've got something for you. The solution does not mean we're just going to sit there and go, all right, Mr. Homeowner, this is a triple pane, temper treated, sealed, customizable, tintable, virgin vinyl window with a stucco fin. We're not going to go through. I mean, we could. I think that some of those things are important, but that would be like me trying to sell you on going to Hawaii and saying, well, you're going to be hopping on a plane and you're going to have a 6-hour plane ride to Honolulu from LAX. And while you're on there, you're going to get fed peanuts, but nothing else. You're going to have a crying baby next to you and an old man that slouches when he sleeps onto you. And you're going to arrive at 9:45 p.m. in Honolulu time. And then you'll be directed to a van that'll take you to your hotel, the Royal Palm, blah, blah, blah. Right? That right there is, that's the pre-flight checklist. Important to know, yes. I think you need to know some of those things, sans the baby crying and stuff like that. But what is going to actually get me to create emotion around purchasing the plane tickets to Hawaii and a stay in Hawaii are not those things. I think we can all agree that the things that would sell me and my family on going to Hawaii would be seeing an active volcano up close, getting to hike it, swimming with sharks or sea turtles, going to go see hula dancers or like a Haka traditional dance, right? It's going and having Kalua pork that's been cooking underneath the sand all day. Man, those are experiences that you only get a couple times in your life. That is what sparks the emotion to go to Hawaii. So you might think that windows, less exciting maybe than Hawaii in your mind, and I would agree with you, even being in windows, doesn't take emotion. You'd be wrong. It does take emotion to create a buying decision here. And so when we talk about the solution, we are, just as Alex Hormozy described here, master marketer selling the dream outcome, or the emotions that they're going to receive as a result of purchasing rather than the actual purchase itself. So what emotions are we selling? Well, we can't know that quite yet unless we do know the three things that create the emotion: the product, the financing, the warranty. One of these is non-unique. Two of them are unique. So let's talk about product for a second. The product is not unique. If you look at our competitors, and that could be, I mean, the Mountain West, you've got Performance, Legacy, DeBella, that could be Elite, Guardian, Infinity. All of these companies really all sell the same thing. There is no uniqueness to any of those offers in terms of product. We're all selling an all-side, triple pane, temperature-treated sealed virgin vinyl replacement window. That's pretty much it, right? That is all that we sell and our competitors sell. And so that does not put us apart from anybody. That means that any company can serve those 5 symptoms that we just talked about. It was never a matter of just solving those. It was who can solve it with the least time, with the least effort on the part of the homeowner, with the biggest guarantees to the homeowner, and the most ease of access. Now, those are our actual solutions. And those are things that our competitors can't keep pace with us on. So let's talk about one of those. One of those is financing. If you've read through the advertising home pitch when we're talking to a homeowner at their doorstep, you know that we don't charge people anything up front. So we qualify them for financing that gives them $0 out of pocket. What we're doing there is we're actually absorbing that cost. The company is saying, look, we'll eat the cost of your commissions. Well, we'll pay that out of pocket, even if we haven't gotten dollars and cents yet. Number 2 is that we'll actually fund the installation and labor from this project without dollars and cents hitting our pocket yet. That is a tremendous liability, and a lot, wherever there's liability taken on, there's trust. That is our trust in you, and that is our trust in our product and our guarantee to the homeowner. So it shows them that we're serious about it. We're putting our money where our mouth is. That also gives them flexible terms. So that means they can pay on a monthly basis, like a car loan or maybe even their mortgage, but they might be paying $80 to $100 a month, even less than what they're saving in equity and power bills that they don't have to pay anymore. And then, of course, no dealer fee option. So if you come from places like roofing or solar, you already know that your industries are plagued with dealer fees. I've been in those industries and sold companies in those industries. That is a really hard part about lending. There are no dealer fee options when you work through a preferred lender that already trusts our track record. Why? Because JKR has a less than 3% cancellation rate, meaning that you don't have to work harder or really smarter. Just naturally, our offer does a lot of the legwork that makes it so that you don't have cancellations. Makes it so that we get better funding, our customers get better terms than our competitors can give them, and we earn more aggressively and quicker than our competitors pay their people. Financing is a solution for both sides, rep and homeowner. Number 3 is the warranty. So our warranty is a true lifetime warranty. So what does that mean? Well, I think sometimes we hear that so much that it can get trite, like almost just like stale, like, well, doesn't everybody do that? No, not everybody does that. Not everybody honors it the way that we do. So let me give you an example with a different product. Let's say that you're on a Ford cars lot and I sell cars, which I've never done. But let's say that I'm selling you a truck. I'm selling you an F-150. Already, most people would love to own a brand new F-150. It's a pretty cool truck, most purchased car in American history. So I think it's a great example. But let's say that I sweeten the deal for you. Let's say that I told you that that Ford F-150, when you purchase it, comes with a lifetime warranty where if any component on it breaks, we'll immediately repair it. And the day that that thing just goes kaput, it's just done. I'll purchase you a brand new F-150 of the year that it broke down. So if it breaks down in 2035, guess what? You get a brand new 2035 F-150 for free. No money out of pocket, no payments after the fact. It's yours. And then let's say that again in 2045, we have the same problem. Great. 2045, 0 miles on it, F-150 right on your driveway, right? Now let's imagine that, heaven forbid, but you pass away in the year 2060. So in 2060, when you pass away, guess who that warranty goes to? Your kids. We'd then say, cool, go pick an F-150 off the lot. It's yours, a 2070 F-150, if they still make F-150s in the future, right? That is our warranty. So having a lifetime warranty is a guarantee that we will give them the dream outcome, and that if they don't like any part of it at any time, that's going to fix that for them always. So it literally makes the probability of them achieving their dream outcome 100%, which our competitors can't do because that's a lot of saving and investing that creates the fund to back a warranty like that. And that's what JKR does. We're smart with our financial health on the back end. So we talked about how these things are kind of pre-flight checklist. Well, what are the emotions that are created from somebody choosing our solution? Well, that creates peace of mind, contentness, pride in the aesthetics of their home. It creates just this comfortability and this almost just locked in sense of security that they'll get their money back one day. They can pull that right back out, right? That's what helped them decide to purchase a home in the first place. They'll be reminiscent of those same feelings when they purchase a window from JKR. That is the feeling that we're trying to achieve with a homeowner, okay? So now that we've talked about, homeowners and what we're trying to accomplish with a homeowner, we have to now understand how to be the best version of us that is going to serve that homeowner. So if we look at the question is not if this person will replace their windows, it's when will they replace their windows, because they have a builder grade window. That 98% of the pie untouched market is going to need to replace their windows at some point. So if that's the case, then that would mean that the question is not if, it's when. And now the question, if answered then, is who is going to serve them? And I personally believe if you were to put me into a home and I were to be selling, let's say, we get to see me and a competitor selling side by side to a homeowner, and we have an identical product, identical price, that it's going to come down to trust. And I think trust is actually the foundation of a sale. Having agreement comes from having trust first. And if I, let's say, let my finances go, I have commission breath. If I let my body go, it's a sign that I already don't prioritize my own health. I can't even take care of myself, let alone another human being. If my marriage and my relationships are not healthy and strong, I don't put effort generally into the relationships that I'm building. I'm out of touch with my ability to connect with another person. If I am not reading books and reading up on my craft or about sales psychology or the actual product itself, I haven't kept up with all of the updates, then I'm not mentally fit enough to serve this person either. So at the end of the day, those things, mental, physical, spiritual, even, our financial health, our relationships with other people, those need to be developed. That's why we are a personal development platform before a window company ever, right? And so how do we start building that? Well, we trust that if you got hired, you have a foundational level of those 5 things, enough to create culture and synergy within our group. But does that mean that you're guaranteed success at JKR? No, it does not. So how do we get to the closest thing we can to a guarantee of success at JKR? Well, the common thread in our top performers are these 4 things here: appointment setting, mastering your craft early on; recruiting, which we'll talk about recruiting bonuses as well in case you need a recap; the Power 20 list, which was attached on your welcome email or inside of a folder that has your tools; and then the 5 expectations. These are 5 expectations that don't cost you a dime, is what it's called. So let's take these one by one. Appointment setting number 1 should be learned word for word when you first start out. If that sounds, like, autocratical, I don't know what you'd even call that, just overbearing, I promise you there's some psychology to this. I have 2 siblings that are, well, one is now emeritus. They don't serve in the Army, but the other one is currently serving in our nation's Army. When you talk to them at first, when I talked to my sister who was in the Army first, I said, well, doesn't it just get old? Don't you hate getting your clothes picked out for you? Well, it's not fun always, right? You get your food picked out for you. You don't get to choose who you're bunking with. Don't get to choose your friends, really. You don't get to choose the person that's leading you whatsoever. You don't get to choose the missions that you go on. You don't get to choose what you really read or the entertainment that you get when you're on duty. It's pretty much all decided for you. David Goggins, in his book, Can't Hurt Me, described this phenomenon as something that actually was a massive benefit to him in the field. Here's what he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, is that Because my clothes were picked out for me, that reserved brain power that I didn't have to spend picking clothes, even if it was small. I didn't have to choose my food. That's more brain power that I didn't have to take into my personal day or emotion into my day. My friends, my bunk mates, the exercising that I did, the studies that I did, the books that I read, all of that was chosen for me, which reserved almost complete brain power for the most important thing when you're in the field, which is survival. When you're getting shot at and you have every single mental faculty awake and ready to use, and none of that's been spent in a day, you can take advantage of that situation and survive. So, of course, appointment setting is nothing like being in a war. Nothing like trenches or a war zone. I promise you that. It's actually fairly enjoyable. However, we do believe that if you reserve all of your brain power by not having to choose what you say or reinvent the wheel, then you can reserve it for things like tonality or the questions that you ask, or being able to go against rebuttals or help somebody make a buying decision. Those all take creativity and brain power that you don't want to spend up having to think up every individual word of a script. This gives you the recipe to succeed early on. So like we reminded you before, if you haven't already, commit to memorizing your script before the in-field orientation. Number 2 is recruiting. Recruiting means that we trust you to be not only a representative of us in somebody's home, but a representative of our brand in front of another possible rep, another person in our company. So that trust does not come lightly. It's also not compensated lightly. To recap the compensation, if you refer somebody into JKR that ends up getting hired, then you will earn a bonus in perpetuity, which you can think of that as infinity, forever. As long as you're with the company and that person's with the company, you will earn a bonus on every sale that they create. That's called an override. So what is the override for these sales? Well, if it's average or below, so $14,999 or below in value on one project, you earn a $250 bonus. If it's $15,000 or average or higher, then that gives you a $500 bonus. Looking at the stats, that's about 3.3% of a given sale comes into your pocket if you were the person that hired or referred somebody for hire. So let's use a little example. Let's call it 3% for easy math and conservativeness' sake. If you were, let's say 3 months down the road, you only had a team of 5, which is not a great hiring streak. Team of 5 is pretty small. And let's say that each of those 5 are actually having the worst month of their lives in sales. They're only doing $100,000 each. That would be $500,000 in total revenue. You would be entitled in the example to 3% is what we're going to put here. So that would mean that for those of you that are good at math, you probably guessed it before I did, $15,000 would be your monthly bonus for that month's production. If they repeat it next month, that's another $15,000. If they do it again the month after, that's another $15,000. So how do you increase that? You either help add more people to that team, so you get better at hiring, or you get better at training them. You get better at helping them learn appointment settings. So you have to become a master of that first, or you get better at closing and teach them how to close. Right? So by doing those two things in tandem, you set your growth on fire. That's unstoppable. It'll grow with or without you at that point. And of course, your earnings month to month on that team building bonus just go up as well. So helping bring friends, family, coworkers, even people that you hung out with in high school, old football teams into JKR, if they can meet the minimum requirements and actually receive acceptance into our organization, is profitable to you early on. Number 3 is the Power 20 list, which helps you achieve goals 1 and 2 here. So, or pillars 1 and 2. So a Power 20 list, what is that? Well, Power 20 list comes out of Grant Cardone's book, Sell or Be Sold. It's a foundational selling tool that gives you a base layer of leads to both recruit and sell from so that you can see early success at building a pipeline. Well, what does a pipeline mean? For those of you that haven't sold yet, a pipeline means that if I sell a deal and I ask for referrals based on their experience working with me, that I'll get multiple referrals. So if I already have 10 sales right off the bat just from my personal network that each give me 5 more leads, I now have a pipeline of 50 more leads, which at JKR would mean that if even half of those went through in a given month, that's about a $35,000 to $40,000 month for me. So the power of referrals multiplies your ability to be successful. That's wildly important. The Power 20 list is not for JKR to harvest from you and harvest the leads. It's a way of us saying, look, we've seen this work for you in the past. This tool is for you more than anything. Honor code on it, whether you finish it or not, because you'll be the one looking at this list. But it lists all of your possible recruiting prospects and selling prospects early on so that you can recruit an appointment set and see some early success. Number 4 is the 5 expectations. The 5 expectations that do not cost a dime is what they're called are the following. Be on time or early. We'd prefer early. Work the hours. So work your 9 to noon shift, work your 4 to 8 or 5 to 8 or whatever you're doing with your team. No negativity, meaning no complaining. And if you're going to complain, come with the solution and give it to the right person in the chain of command. Talk to your manager, not your fellow coworkers. Don't bring other people down because you're having a rough day or week. Number 4 is contribute positively to the team. So if you see somebody struggling to appointment set and you're great at it, then go help them. And likewise, when you're first learning, mentorship is a big part of our program. It's 30 days when you first start out. That can only happen when we have people that contribute positively to the team. Number 5 is always do your best. We're very different than most sales orgs in the way that we don't hire and fire based on achieving a number or not achieving a number. We will hire and fire based on your ability to keep our standards of conduct and ethics. One of those is putting forth your best effort at all times. You can control your effort, you can control your attitude, can't control your results, and we understand that. All of us here have sold and we understand that intimately. Okay, so let's give you guys a success spotlight, an example of somebody who achieved this in a really big way. This is Brandon Wall from our Mesa office. Brandon is now training to be a director, so he no longer does coordination or appointment setting all that much. His goal is now in-home closing. Brandon is one of now 28 people within the last 9 weeks that have achieved $5,000 or greater on a weekly paycheck within one of their first 2 weeks. So we pay weekly like we talked about in the interview process, and achieving $5,000 or more is possible week 1, it's possible week 2, and every week there forward. Even if your only way of getting a paycheck is appointment setting, if that's your only participation, no problem. That's not going to stunt your ability to earn well. And Brandon's a good example of this. His first week's earnings total up to $7,100 on Friday. That's a pretty great week. It's not our best in company history. That's more around the $9,000 range, but great week nonetheless. When we interviewed Brandon after his first week, very simple man. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that in the best way. What he said was this: what it came down to for me was taking initiative. I fought for time with my managers and memorized the script word for word before coming to orientation. Exactly what we're admonishing you guys to do as well. Okay, so there is no reason why one of you in this meeting right now couldn't be our next success spotlight. Of course, we'll ask for your permission. But we hope to see you guys at a paycheck, something similar to what Brandon earned in his first week on your first week as well. So let's talk about the path of progression. This is something that we've probably already brought up on your interview, but it's worth exploring in depth. Our path of progression means upward mobility. It means that if you're an appointment setter, we don't want you as an appointment setter forever. That is rare. Most companies in our space that leverage door-to-door as a marketing tool refer to door-to-door as a position. It's something that you do, whereas for us, it's a tool. It's like Batman's Batarang, right? Or a little pepper spray or something. I don't know what Batman carries on him, but you get the point. It's a tool at the end of the day. I do not want people to be an appointment setter for longer than they have to, and I'd love for them to get out of appointment setting as fast as possible. Not because appointment setting sucks. It's really easy money. It's honestly not too terribly difficult to learn how to do and do well, but it's a little bit cushy. It doesn't help you grow as a human being. It doesn't grow your income past maybe the $200,000 or $300,000 a year mark. So what does our path from coordinator all the way up to X look like? Well, let's detail it now. We follow the principle of meritocracy. Hopefully the ocracy part of that word is something that you've already heard. Maybe democracy is probably the most recent example if you're following elections locally or nationally. Democracy means a government, ocracy by the people, demos. So what does a meritocracy mean? A meritocracy is a government or structure that is built based off of leadership that has not been elected. They're people that have self-elected. It's like saying, I am the president of this because I achieved X, Y, and Z. It would be the equivalent of having every American take a test and say the most knowledgeable about history, the best at negotiating with foreign leaders, creating foreign domestic policy, protecting our country, protecting our GDP, and helping grow our economy and keep us stable. The best person at all of those things will be elected as president, right? Well, I don't know if that would work or not, but if we just chose the absolute best one in all of those different ways, there's a good chance we'd have somebody very qualified as president. Where would democracy maybe not work? Well, democracy wouldn't work in something performance-based like football. If the NFL was governed by democracy, that would mean that the fans get to choose which teams go to the Super Bowl, and the teams with the most fans would probably win every year. So Texas, being the largest and most populous in terms of football country, would send their Cowboys probably to the Super Bowl every single year just because of fan count alone, whether they're qualified to be there or not. And then number two, the Chiefs, with let's say Taylor Swift's helping them boost up their attendance and watch views, would also be in the Super Bowl every year. That would get kind of boring to see teams that are performing really, really well winning that are not able to go to the Super Bowl. Can you imagine if, let's say, I'm from Arizona originally, the Cardinals probably won't make it to the Super Bowl, but let's say the Cardinals did. The Cardinals qualified in every way. They had a perfect game streak. They never lost once, but it was a democracy. And they don't get to be in the Super Bowl simply because they weren't voted in. It's frustrating, isn't it? And in the world of sales, because of the performance-based aspect, we believe in kind of the same thing as Super Bowl, but we don't believe it to be as competitive. We just believe that everybody has equal opportunity to be in the Super Bowl. And so meritocracy means quite literally a government based on merit, what you're doing. We don't care about what you look like, your gender, your sexual orientation, your religion. We don't care how old or young you are. We just care that you're doing the thing. Anybody has equal success or an equitable platform to be able to be a leader at JKR, which is pretty rare to find nowadays. So how does a coordinator, that's more than likely what you who are watching this is right now, how do you become a director, which is an in-home closer? Well, this is a little misnomer, so we'll correct that. It says build a team that does $300,000 of revenue average for 3 months in a row. That would actually be $300,000 within a 3-month period. So within a baked 90 days, which you could do within your first 90 days very, very easily. You could have bad months by yourself and get that in 90 days. Or like it says, you could build a team. So you can recruit, have a team of 3. Each of you have a rough month your first month, 100, 100, 100,000. That becomes 300,000 and you're promoted in 30 days or less. That is something that you get to choose. We're not going to shoulder tap. There's no nepotism. There's no favoritism. There's not, well, I play golf with this guy. It is based on you and your desire and ability to get there. So becoming a director is within your control and timeline. From a director, is there anywhere you can go from there? Absolutely. You move into what's called an OSL, which is an office sales leader. An office sales leader is somebody who they get some more privileges. They get more responsibilities because we trust them. They own the roof over their head. So they actually own the lease, or in some cases, own the building that they meet out of. It also means that they own branch equity in the company, which is pretty incredible. They earn up to 5.5% branch equity on the branch that they own, which we'll do an example of in just a second here. What do you have to do in order to become an OSL? Well, you have to be a director that between you and a team does 500,000 every month for 3 months at least. If we see that that revenue is being created, then we know that that is an investment worth taking on. So how do we invest in this leader? Well, the company is bankrolling your growth. Me and my recruiting department at that point are sending people to you in mass. So you get new groups of people that can go and produce revenue for your team and not only build up that office in an influence, but also build up your paycheck. So let's do an example. Let's do 2 examples, in fact. So let's say in the first one that, let's say you just barely got up to $500,000 in revenue. So $500,000 in revenue is the basic, barely qualifying to be an OSL in a given month. And let's say that you built up a new office. You said, I want to go be in Chicago. Great. You started up the Chicago office. You brought your people with you. And great, you're doing $500,000 a month now in Chicago. Well, your earnings change because now you're in 5.5%, not 3.3. So we'd take 500,000. We multiply that by 0.055, and that becomes a $27,500 bonus. That becomes essentially like your base. That's the lowest that you'll really ever earn in a given month, always. That's not even you knocking or closing or doing anything, building your team. That is just the base amount that you would earn in a given month. That's pretty substantial. Well, let's take a more mature office. We recently had Ty Ross. Ty was our OSL in the Draper's Salt Lake office. He built up his office to become what's called an RSL. So that means he achieved $2 million in monthly volume at least 1 month. So that means that his market matured to the point where he can go start up another one. So, well, what does that look like? If you had an office that's doing $200,000, $2 million in revenue in a given month, what are your overrides at that point? Well, we'd multiply that by 0.055, and that would be $110,000 in a given month. So during your interview, you probably got to the point where we talked about the highest earners in the company. We had 48 reps last year. And of course, we're skyrocketing in growth from there. But that we had 4 7-figure earners out of those 48, and the highest of which grossed a little over 1.3 million. How do you do that? You own offices. You own actual building spaces and teams and revenue. You're entitled to an actual cut of every dollar of that revenue that you create for that office. Pretty incredible. So what does that mean when you become an RSL, a regional sales leader? Well, a regional or senior sales leader is somebody who's achieved $2 million with their first office and now gets the chance to build multiple offices at a time while the company, JKR, helps bankroll that. We help actually build up your teams for you using me and my department as recruiters. So what does that do for you? Well, now that means, let's say you had an office doing, maybe that office that did 2 million is now only doing 1 million a month. And you have 2 other offices that are doing, let's say, $500,000. They're 2 brand new fledgling offices. So from the office where they're doing $1 million a month, you'd be earning $55,000 a month. You'd be earning $27,500 from another and $27,500 from another. That is like a franchisee type model without having to actually be a franchisee and purchase licensing. But that is what's available down the road for you. Somebody who achieves $6 million across all of their offices in a given month changes their designation. They are now a partner. They are partnered up with myself, Jeff Fieldstead, Jefferson, and his wife. You are an executive at this company, essentially acting as a VP of sales, where you train and you build teams as your really number one and only priority for the rest of your time here until you decide to retire. That is the path of progression, meaning that everybody from never sold all the way to, yeah, I've sold for over a decade like myself, being a VP of sales and an executive at our company and earning a 7 or multi-7-figure income in a given year, that path of progression is a red carpet, open invitation. I would love to see everybody do it, although very few will put in the willpower to get up this high. That is available for you to do. I want you to use the following poll. We're going to put a poll on your screen. We want to gauge your aptitude and desire for leadership. Aptitude is something we learn over time, but desire is something we can gauge with this poll. So the survey that you're going to receive is going to have 3 things. I have a lot of desire to move up the path of progression and move into leadership. Number 2 is I could have desire down the road, but don't have desire right now. Number 3 is I have no desire to be in leadership at JKR. Super excited to hear from your guys' answers. Go ahead and take a few minutes or take a few seconds to do that now. Okay, thank you for participating, or if you're still participating, no sweat in that poll. Now we're going to move into best practices. So with best practices, we're going to start from the inside out. So we're going to talk about mindset. We're going to talk about just the attitude that you bring to your work every day. Then we'll move into nonverbals, so body language, and then we'll talk about paraverbals, which is how we're saying what we say, and then we'll end today. So to start off, I want to talk about the law of averages. The law of averages, I think, was really, really well defined by Grant Cardone in the book Sell or Be Sold. Love him or hate him, I'm not a huge fan of Grant, but in that first chapter, he says something that has stood out to me for now over a decade, which said, the greatest trait of a sales professional is blank. That blank, you might think it's ambition, you might think it's persistence, work ethic, and I believe those are all top 5 traits. But he said something that caught me really off guard when I read that for the first time. And it said, the ability to forecast results accurately. That's it. Ability to forecast results accurately. So what does that mean? Well, as he defines it, that is the ability to be able to track your numbers backwards and be able to manipulate that data to become better at your job or earn more. So you probably heard, and they say this, I feel like a lot in, truly commission only jobs or like, MLMs and things like that, that they talk about like your income is completely within your control. Well, that's not necessarily true. There has to be some levers for that to be true. You have to be earning quick income, so you can't be waiting on time or other people's actions to earn what you earn. Number 2 is that you have to earn aggressively. So if you're not earning aggressively, you're not getting your fair share, then it doesn't matter how much effort you're putting in. It's not going to amount to what it's actually worth. And then, of course, number 3 is diversified. So if there's only one way that you can earn your income, you're still only trapped to one type of aptitude that creates dollars and cents for you. None of those 3 things constitute control until you have all 3 present, which is true of our compensation model and what makes us unique and also have some of the highest earners in home services in America. So our income is truly within our control when I say that. I hope that doesn't sound kitschy or trite. That is the truth. However, the effort that creates that can be tracked, and then we can forecast that using the numbers backwards. Let's give you an example using this funnel here. Door to door, just like telephone sale or cold calling or even internet marketing, is a funnel. You'll hear about that a lot in marketing. It all starts off with cold contacts or impressions or calls or knocks, whatever that looks like. And that becomes appointments set. Not all of those appointments will actually sit down with the closer. Some of them flake out. They're flaky or get cold feet. And then not all of those will close. Some of them won't qualify for their credit and we'll have to drop them. Or they just have no interest. They decide that it's not time for a buying decision. We couldn't move them towards a buying decision. So in this example, I took maybe not so great numbers so we can do an example. So the 600 should look familiar. We keep a pace of 100 cold contacts, 100 knocks on a door a day, even if that doesn't mean that we're actually talking to somebody. We just keep track of the actual effort. That is within our control, effort and attitude. So if we're doing 100 a day, 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, that would be 600 contacts a week. Well, let's say that we're not very good at our job yet. So we're only getting 10 appointments set out of those 600. Well, if only 5 of those sit, that's now half, so 50% conversion. And then 2 out of the 5 close. So that's less than 50% conversion. Well, let's take a look at where I live. Here in Southern Utah, the average deal is $17,300 in revenue. So if I'm doing 2 of those in a week, I multiply that by 2, that's $34,600 in revenue. I am entitled to what percentage of that? I'd be entitled to 8% because I hit tier 2 in a week. So I'd multiply this by 0.08, and that means that my pay for the week would be $2,768. So if I want to know what I'm going to earn, let's say I got 0% better. And also I never learn how to close, which is unlikely, obviously, in a year. But if I did nothing better than just that in a given year, and I took 2 weeks off, so I took a generous amount of time off in a year, that would be 50 weeks of that type of pay. That's $138,400. So $138,000 in a year. That's about our average. 134 was our average last year across rookie reps. So if you're brand new, that's about what you could expect if you're average. Of course, nobody considers themselves average, I'm sure. So if I now divide this, let's say by the number of deals that were achieved during that year, that was only 2 a week for only 50 weeks. So that would be at that point 100. So I divide this by 100. And that would be $1,384 of value per deal that come into my pocket. So I now have a dilemma to make. I could say, well, what if I did that 3 times a week? So I could now say, well, I'm going to now triple that result and multiply that by 50 weeks. That means I'd earn $207,600 if I did that math right. So if I want to make a $100,000 income, I can even work that back. I could say, well, what is 200,000 divided by that amount of value? Well, then I have the number of deals that I need to do in a given year, divide that by 50, and I have the number that I need in a given week. For those of you that feel like math's not your strong suit, I promise this is fun math and worth your time to learn how to get proficient at. But what this does is it gives me a benchmark of 2 things. The income being the first that we talked about. The second being the actual performance. So for example, if 600 contacts equals 10 appointments for me, but 300 cold contacts becomes 10 appointments for somebody next to me, that means that they are twice as good. There is some gap that I need to fill that they are currently filling that earns them double what I'm doing with less effort. That's pretty incredible, right? Or with the same effort. So what I'm going to want to do is shadow that person, record them, do a video of them, and then kind of dissect what are they doing versus me so that I can work those numbers and get better conversions from cold contacts to appointments, appointments to sitting, which means I did better button up, and better sitting to closing ratios, which means that either I got better at closing or the closer that was assigned to my deal got better at closing. Okay, that's wildly important. That's why I would say it would be the most, I would agree with Grant here. It is the most useful skill or greatest trait that a professional salesperson can carry with them because it improves their performance and then it also improves their ability to earn income. So let's talk a little bit about the mindset that we bring to the doors when we're first learning how to appointment set. What mindset should we carry with us? We've talked about value. We've talked about growth already. We've talked about conviction at the beginning. Let's talk about the one that you see over on the top right, abundance. That's a hot button word. That's a hot topic nowadays that you see all over social media, abundance versus scarcity. So it starts to maybe mean less because you hear it more. Well, I want you to take that away. Let's relearn about abundance versus scarcity. Abundance would say that there is an abundance of resources, including money, if we want to include that in that category out there. And really, there's enough to go around for everybody. You may not have grown up believing that. I grew up in a family where we lived off of food stamps. We lived off of church food that was donated. I grew up very, very poor and in a large family. And so it didn't seem like the world was very abundant. But now having owned businesses, and I now invest in businesses as a passive investor that does not operate businesses, there are $1 million earning opportunities per year that come across my desk honestly on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. The abundance to be able to earn that way is out there and you have access to it. That shouldn't sound hippy-dippy. That's a truth. There is more than enough out there, even statistically. Scarcity would say the opposite. Scarcity is kind of how I grew up. And, you know, even to this day, maybe some of the way that some of the people that I grew up with still operate. Scarcity would say that there's not enough, so I need to hoard everything that I do have and get defensive or violent. And we see this behavior in dogs, right? Me and my wife, when we were first married, bought a boxer, beautiful dog. And we wanted a boxer. The first boxer that we saw, we purchased. And it wasn't really because it was the ideal one. It was because we felt really, really bad. That boxer was living in a family's garage. It got its food just kind of thrown on the floor. It would go underneath the car. So it was just eating off the dirty floor. It wasn't getting fed enough. So it had like the rib cage marks. Like it was very skinny. It was missing hair in some patches. So it probably had like skin problems. It didn't have a bowl of water that we could see. And we already could see that it was skittish around people. So we purchased it because we were scared for that dog. And so we purchased this dog. The car ride home was great. As soon as I put food in the bowl, the dog comes running over to eat it. And my wife went over very harmlessly, obviously, but wanted to just stroke its head and say, "Oh, so glad that you're finally getting food," right? And this dog takes a huge bite out of my wife's arm. It's still to this day bite marks on her arm, and if you look close enough, bite marks on my arm as well. That is because that dog was not getting fed adequately very frequently, and so access to food was not abundant, it was scarce, and it carried the scarcity mindset that ended up diseasing the brain. And that dog ended up having problems with a lot of things. Our couch, we couldn't sit on our own couch for fear of that dog, number one, peeing on the couch, number two, biting us or getting really aggressive, snarling, barking if we got anywhere close to it, because that was property of dog now. Our bed got to the same way. It got to the point where the Humane Society had to take the dog because the dog wasn't trainable. The dog just kind of deteriorated mentally and just was not doing well mentally. So sad story, but it teaches you something about dogs, and believe it or not, teaches you something about humans. We think we're different. As mammals, we kind of all share that trait. That scarcity is something that affects the way that we operate and even affects the way that we earn, believe it or not. Whether you take responsibility and ownership of that fact is up to you, but I can promise if you feel like that rings true with you, that you feel like you haven't earned what you want to be earning, then that means that there's some sort of value that you need to provide to the marketplace, and the mindset that delivers that is abundance. So for those of you that have seen Emperor's New Groove, Disney classic cartoon with Cusco, the emperor in Peru, you've got this character named Kronk with shoulder devil and shoulder angel version of him. Abundance and scarcity are very similar, and they have kind of whisperings that you might hear from time to time in your brain that reassure you or dissure you, I think would be the word, of the fact that you are capable or not capable of doing something. And many of us can pinpoint that and stop it. Sometimes it's a learned trait. So what does the shoulder scarcity devil say to us when we're going out and knocking doors, maybe for the first time or 100th time? Well, it might say things like, "It's 5 o'clock. Are you sure you want to do this? These people are eating dinner. You really want to interrupt them? They're putting kids to bed. You're going to wake up their kids if you're knocking on their door. Isn't it dark and late? They'll feel like that's a home intrusion. Well, they're all relaxed. You really wouldn't want to rile them up." If any of those things are things that you have thought or are thinking in your mind, I need you to take those thoughts out of your mind. That is absolutely untrue. I'll tell you why. The abundance angel would say this. The abundance angel says, if you do not talk to this person and they lose the ability to purchase from you and do not replace their windows, that is $20,000 of loss that you incurred on that person. That is the truth of it. I will never charge them more than they're already losing by taking no action, inaction. So what does that mean at the end of the day? Well, that means I have people to serve. That also, the abundance angel might say things like this: thank God that they already ate. That means that they have one less thing to do and they don't have work to do. They're in a calm mindset to be able to have an educated conversation with you. Thank goodness that their kids are now in bed. That means that they have one less thing to tend to, and now they can attend to the things that the spouses are going to take care of. Home improvement being a topic of spousal conversation. I'm not interrupting anything. I'm bringing value to them, but it is your choice. If you don't think that your thinking or your, well, sometimes thoughts are out of your control, but your attitude that you bring and the effort that you bring are in your control, I can promise you, you haven't seen the success that you could have otherwise. And I think that you know that too. Choose abundance. That is a choice, and you can consciously choose to have that and bring those thoughts into your brain every day and bring them to work. So let's now talk about how we actually go about a presentation. You guys know what to say because you're memorizing it on that script. So I won't need to cover that all that much. But what you can't see from a script is how your body is acting or how you're saying something. So we're going to cover those two things. Let's talk about body language first. So body language refers to what actions our body is taking while or without our body speaking. So it refers to everything besides that. So imagine that I were to approach your doorstep and you could see in your Ring camera that I'm just like this in front of your door. There's a couple problems here in terms of body language. Number one, I need to take a few steps back. Take 3 steps back at the very least. If they have a stoop like steps, go rest on that stoop with one leg. So take multiple steps back from there. What that does is it gives them essentially the feeling that you're not intruding. You respect that it's their property and you're a guest there, but it also says, I do deserve to be here. This is my office, although that is your home. Okay. Number 2 is we take an angled stance. Being right in front of them, shoulders square to them, is confrontational, whether you think it is or not. It's kind of like the way that a dog's hair on the back of their nape or their neck, lights up when they're unhappy. It's confrontational. And so we give a 45-degree angle to show like, look, energy's passing right through you. It sounds hippy dippy, but it's a truth that when energy can pass through you, it feels like they have an out. Right? It doesn't feel like you're trying to confront them or have an argument, which sometimes is a connotation of door-to-door salespeople. You are not a door-to-door salesperson. Take that out of your mind. Door-to-door salesperson is high pressure and moving somebody towards a sale there on their doorstep. They're pushy and pushing things down people's throats. They're not consultative. They do not ask questions. They are not respectful of property or of time. You are an appointment setter. You are an appointment or a marketing coordinator. And so it should feel like you take that seriously and think of yourself different. We take an upright posture, but we relax our shoulders. You're smiling, but not like super exaggerated smiling, just calm and content. No fidgeting. I sometimes see, especially the newer generation, do this with their hands. That is Danny DeVito in his Matilda era in the 90s, selling used cars and slicking his hair back. This is sleazy. It doesn't show confidence. It doesn't show professionalism. Either don't use your hands at all and keep them by your sides, not in their pocket, or only use them in the square, right above your belly button, no farther than your chin. That's your square. And no farther than about this, a little beyond the length of your shoulders. That box shows that you're not trying to be exaggerated with your movement or do anything that might scare somebody away, and you're going to use your hands effectively. So what does that mean? Well, that means that I am using my hands for counting, number 1. So I can say things like, your builder grade windows that we can see here, look, I'm using it for pointing. That's one use. Are creating lack of comfort. They're creating lack of privacy or security. They're hemorrhaging power bills for you. It's an equity eater. Or like we showed, I can point as well. So I can say, look, you've got condensation between the panes. That means that the gas in between the panes is either non-existent or you have a broken seal in there, which means the air is seeping out, which means you're not going to keep your home cool in the summertime or hot in the wintertime. You're sacrificing your comfort and power bills simply because your window is defunct. It doesn't work, right? So I'm using my hands as a way to draw their attention to that thing. Number 3 might be movement. So movement is something that I mean, at least I learned it with sign language. My grandparents are deaf, and so we grew up using sign language around the home. Hands are used to show stories taking place when you're telling a story. It's no different even if you're talking to a hearing person. You can use your hands to show, look, this is a representation of what your neighbors were going through. Boom, 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 problem. This is what they went through now that they have an install. You can see that install if you walk down the street. These are the emotions that created for them. Does that sound similar to what you're hoping to achieve here? Awesome, right? Maybe not something I'd say at the door, but I'm showing you movement across time. Or I could say, this is what your neighbors are facing. You have south-facing windows just like them, which means the sun comes through them. And that means that your back room is going to be hot, uncomfortable, and you avoid going there. Am I right? So I'm using it to show comparison. Those are effective uses of hands. Otherwise, anything other than that is fidgeting and should be avoided. Lastly, is you want to let them come to you first. So what does that mean? Well, that means if I've got something to show them, let's say that let's say that I've got this really cool graphic to show them. I could, for example, run up to their doorstep and say, well, you got to see this. Or I could say, how about you come to me? Come and see what I have to show you. Meaning I'm inviting you into my office and respecting that this is still your house. And if they choose that they're uncomfortable doing that, that's no problem. But if we ever want to show them something, we do not advance, meaning we're not advancing towards their doorstep unless you are invited in or you're asking to be invited in and they allow it, or you're showing them something and they come to you. So if we look the part, we start acting the part. And that means that part of body language is the way that we show up every day. Make sure that your hygiene is in check, that you're wearing a deodorant or equivalent, that your smell isn't offensive, meaning that you haven't showered in multiple days, or maybe you bathed in cologne or something like that. Show up smelling and looking professional. It sounds silly to say, but even just doing your hair and wearing neat, orderly clothes that do not have stains on them and weren't used in days prior is going to help show professionalism in your craft as well. Okay, so now we've talked about what we're doing, and you already know what we're saying, but we don't quite know how to say it yet. So let's talk about paraverbals or tonality. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by watching a clip. I apologize in advance because the movie's a little bit crude. I promise, though, it's nothing HR worthy here. We're going to watch a clip from Anchorman 2 with Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell plays Ron Burgundy, who in this scene is a failed newscaster. He thinks that his life is over, he has no purpose, and so he has a failed suicide attempt. Again, a little bit crude. I promise this is going to help us learn a little bit more about paraverbals and how our speaking affects human emotion. What I want you to look out for is the way that his speech makes his manager feel when his manager comes in contact with him. So we're going to watch the clip now, and then we'll come back and discuss.
This is the end of the road. I'm not turning back. Well, I know it's not a pretty sight. You're going to be the sole witness. If you can't handle it, you leave the room. It's too late, Baxter. I'm going the way of the ancient samurai, who, when dishonored, would hang themselves from a fluorescent light. Goodbye, my sweet hairy prince. Oh, sweet cream on nipples.
Burgundy? Look, oh my God! What the hell happened?
I tried to hang myself because my life's a mess and I saw no other option.
I think you're telling the truth, but why are you saying it like you're lying?
It was a call for help, but it didn't work because I'm too heavy and the ceiling lamp broke. Something like that? Yeah.
I think you're telling the truth.
Yeah, that's what happened.
All right. Thanks for bearing with me through that clip there. Let's talk a little bit about how that made him feel. You may have already used the chat to throw in a little comment or something there. If you have, thanks for participating. But let's talk a little bit about the feeling there. So we know how he was feeling because he said it right to Will Ferrell's character's face. What he said was, I think you're telling the truth, but why does it sound like you're lying? So he felt like Ron Burgundy was not being truthful with him. He can see the evidences. There's a broken roof. There's a noose around this guy's neck. He's obviously on the floor. So everything that he said about his life being a mess and wanting to, maybe end his life seems to be true based on the environment. But the way that he spoke discredited what he said. And what about it made it sound that way? Well, it was what's called a lilt or inflection. He's ending each sentence as though it's a question. My life's a mess and I saw no other option. I was trying to kill myself, right? All of those inflections at the end where his voice goes higher at the end, that is essentially behavior that we'd usually use when we're asking a question. See how I ended that sentence? A question. I'm downtoning it because I'm showing a statement. That is a fact. I believe in this. I have conviction in this. What does a question do? Well, a question shows that I maybe don't even believe what I'm saying. So believe it or not, that can be, whether you think you're doing it or not, there's a very good chance that you are. I would record yourself as one of the best assets that you could have for yourself. Record yourself during a conversation with a friend, and then listen to yourself after the fact. It's almost like nails on a chalkboard listening to yourself. I know, but it's a massively helpful sales tool. If you're putting inflection on the end of your words, there's a very good chance that the way that you're speaking, despite the content, what you're saying is discrediting you as not a professional, not the expert, not knowledgeable, not able to serve them. Okay, so let's talk about some other things. Let the homeowner speak first. Imagine that they open the door, and as soon as I hear, I'm going, my name's Clark. I'm with the marketing team here at JKR. We're running an advertisement home program campaign in the next 3 months. Like, imagine me launching into all of that as soon as they open the door. That's like, holy cow, you're not even acknowledging that I am a living, breathing person. So we let the homeowner speak first, even if it's uncomfortable. And there will be people that are wise to this. They will sit there and just wait and watch, and you wait them out, even if it's uncomfortable. Uncomfortable silence is actually a good tool to leverage in the home, outside of the home. It's a sales tool in your tool belt. Number 2 is slowing down. So slowing down, that can be tough because when your adrenaline is racing, your mind thinks that you're not speaking as fast as you actually are. Right? It's kind of like the objects in mirror may be closer than they appear. Words coming out of your mouth might be faster than it appears in your brain. I promise you. So slowing down, no matter how fast you think you're going, you can go slower. It's going to help you. It's going to buy you more time and show the person that you're confident enough to take up their time. And it's not disrespectful to speak slowly. It's actually a sign that it's well thought out, crafted, and that you actually know what you're doing while you're there. You're a pro. We talked about the lilting and inflections. Cut that. The cue here, if we're thinking of me as a director and you as an actor, you're now Jim Carrey or Ryan Reynolds. The cue that I want is something that actually those actors do decently well, minus Jim Carrey on the calm one, is I want you to be calm. I want you to have tonality that shows that you're confident with being there. You know that you're a guest, but that you belong on that doorstep. You're nonchalant, so you're not trying to make wild jokes. You're not also trying to be hard-hitting or high pressure or anything like that with your facial expressions or the way that you're speaking. And it should come off happy and light generally. Not extremely energetic. That's not what happy means here, but happy, nonchalant, calm. This is the way that I'm talking to people right at their doorstep. That's how I do it, right? Even if it sounds maybe a little bit fake, be as genuine as you can, but be the calm, nonchalant, and happy, genuine version of who you are. Last but not least, your Army greens, right? Your Army chooses what you're wearing. They choose what you're eating, what books you're doing. If you can get the script just as automatic where you know the words already because we put them in your mouth, then being able to focus on how you're saying these things is going to come more naturally. You'll be able to reserve brain power for this rather than that, if you can do it in your sleep. So again, the commitment stands. Number 1 priority, learn that script. Let's go ahead and end today, not by doing a read through of the script. It is important, obviously, like we talked about, but let's end talking about just the next steps from here, and then we'll end with your goals, which will allow you to use the chat to do. On the new hire roadmap, you've got 6 steps. You should have at this point already received your documents. If you haven't, then of course we'll help you out with that like we talked about in the beginning. And by completing that, that'll allow for us to have all your direct deposit and tax info so that we can get you paid your first Friday. Number 2 is learning the script, which we've emphasized a million times. If you feel like that's a dead horse that we're beating, that's for a very good reason. We see early success from it. Number 3 is the virtual training, which you just attended. Woo! Nice job. Thanks for being here. Number 4 is Trainual. Notice that it comes after learning the script. It is less important, but still massively important. Those video modules will have quizzes and content for you to watch from our top performers from the last 6 years. So it's going to help you get a feel for how to say things and do things the way that an expert does in our business from day one. Number 5 is the Power 20 list, which we've already committed as a team to being able to complete prior to your orientation. Under orientation, it says the date for field orientation is on your welcome email. Usually that's a Tuesday. By this time, you should have memorized your script and sent in your wedge for it. So if you haven't yet already, memorize the script, use that wedge link on your welcome email, click into that. It's going to let you record yourself giving responses. Those responses are going to be portions of the script. So it's broken down into, I believe, 6 portions that are very easily digestible. That gives you the chance to be able to just spout it off and pass it off. And then we will see you at orientation. Prior to orientation, I want you to pull out some notes, right? A dull pencil is sharper than the sharpest memory. So I want you to pull out either pen and paper or your phone and take some notes on this. Please set a goal for yourself. You see the JKR goal here above as inspiration for yourself to think big, but what do you want to do during your first week? What do you need to be able to make it happen? What plans need to be put in place to make your goal achievable? That could be an income goal. I want to make 5,000 or more. I want to be in the 5,000 in my first week club. That's great. That could be an effort goal. Instead of $600 or 600 contacts minimum, I want to do 800 this week. So I give myself a better shot at more closes. The law of averages then increases at the top and increases at the bottom. Or that could be, I want to memorize my script. I want to finish my Power 20. I want to recruit 2 people. It can be whatever you think is the greatest use of your time for your bank account and greatest use of your time as you're learning the skill sets that create experts here at JKR. So please take a moment to write those down. If you feel so inclined to share it, then absolutely share that with us using the live chat. We would love to be able to take those down so that we can help hold you accountable in the field. Lastly, let's go to war. You guys are ready to now be out in the battlefield with your brothers and sisters at JKR, where we couldn't be more excited. If you'd like additional resources, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Again, my name's Clark Manwaring. My personal phone number is 801-520-8413. And you can reach me at any time for anything from sales psychology to onboarding help, even to recruiting. That's where I've spent the most of my career, and I'm super happy to give free value where I can. Lastly, you guys can also follow us from Jefferson to Jeff Fieldstead, myself, even JKR on Instagram. You can follow us for more content on JKR or listen to our podcast just real quick on both Spotify or Apple. Again, thank you so much for spending your time with me tonight. We are more than thrilled to be working with you out in the field. If you have additional questions, don't hesitate to use that live chat or the number that I gave you just barely, and we'll see you soon.